Robert Plank Show, episode 193, Madly Chasing Peace. Use 3 by 3 focused meditation to find inner peace and wisdom with Dina Proctor. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Robert Plank Show, where we talk about making money and building an online business. Our guest today is Dina Proctor, and she's a life and business coach and the best-selling author of the book Madly Chasing Peace: How I Went from Hell to Happy in 9 Minutes a Day. It's supported by Jack Canfield, and she has a 3 by 3 meditation, which is helping thousands to transform their lives. So Dina, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Robert. It's fun to share the space with you. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad that you're here, and I think that we're going to have a lot of fun in our conversation today. So, could you tell us about what it is that you do and how you can help people and what makes you stand out?
Oh, sure. I help people use short bursts of focused meditation several times throughout their day to be able to really transform their bodies, their lives, their financial situations, whatever they want to manifest in their lives, whatever they want to experience in the outer world, whatever any of us want to experience, whether it's experiencing healing in our bodies or improved relationships or a better financial situation and more business success. It all starts on the mindset first. It comes from our core beliefs and emotional, kind of the emotions that we're feeling about the thoughts that we're thinking about where we want to go in our lives. So I teach people how to hone their focus using these short bursts of meditation. And I call it 3 by 3 meditation because it stands for 3 minutes, 3 times a day. And I know that doesn't sound like a heck of a lot, but it changed my life from being suicidal and alcoholic into being a successful entrepreneur. So it's really, really powerful.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking into I'm looking forward to jumping into your story and hearing about how how things changed for you, how things went from the before and after. And I'm really glad that I'm on this call with you because like this whole like meditation stuff, like I keep hearing about it and I've tried it a little bit. Like I've done like I'll like take like walks during the day, and I guess that I've been told that I guess like if I go for a walk without music, without listening to anything, then that sort of gets the like a similar effect. And I've tried like in the morning, like sitting and closing my eyes and just thinking, and I, at least like what little I've done with it, it kind of hasn't worked for me. And then I've been told that well, I should try more of like a guided meditation or a transcendental meditation and stuff like that. And so, I mean, what would you say to someone like me who like I know that this is something that I need, and I've tried it a little bit, but I haven't really committed to it? I mean, what would you say to someone like me?
Oh, I think that's such a great question. And it's probably one of the most common, the two most common questions that I get are first, I fall asleep when I sit down to meditate, like what's going on? And the second thing is, I don't think I'm a meditator because I can't quiet my mind. And I'll tell you from where I was, planning a date for my suicide, trying to quit drinking, not sure if I wanted to quit drinking, not sure if I wanted to take my life. Like I will tell you, the inner mind chatter on me was so horrifically negative. And I thought meditation was a ridiculous idea. Like when the woman mentoring me told me to meditate, I was kind of like, well, that's nice, but like, what am I really going to do?
Right.
I don't think that's any kind of a solution. But she was really adamant about it, and her being adamant about it and who she was and the success she had gotten from it was the thing that made me stick to it. So for me, when I was first starting to meditate and I was in withdrawal from alcohol and all of that stuff, the first few weeks were really hard. My body was shaking and sweating. And that's why it became these 3 minute bursts of meditation, because I couldn't sit for the 20 minutes that she instructed me to sit. So I would do 3 minutes several times a day to make kind of that 20-minute quota. But I get it, what you're saying about, the overactive mind and stuff. I think there's two things. Like one thing that I recommend to people is a bridge, like what I call a neutral distraction activity. And that can be a bridge to get into a place of true meditation. Like for example, when you're going on your walks or when you're driving or in the shower, like a lot of people have relaxation then and they think, okay, my mind is a little bit quiet then. And I think it's because we have something that's keeping our busy obsessive mind occupied, so it can kind of be to the wayside. It's like a child that just needs something to do. You kind of just give him a little coloring book and he quiets down and settles down. It's kind of like if we do that with our heads, we can get out of that head rat race that's going on inside and get into that inner space of peace. So what you might try is the neutral distraction activity. Like, for example, if you sit down for meditation and set your timer for 3 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever you want, you could even start with 30 seconds if it feels really intimidating, and do a counting exercise. Like, start with the number 783 and count backwards by sevens. And I've done this a million times and I never get the same answer. So it's not about getting the math right, but it's about being able to give your mind kind of like a bone to chew on. So it's doing something that is focused and neutral, and it gets your mind off of what's just, kind of keeping you anxious or not being able to settle down. I really believe meditation for me is not an activity. It's a state of being. So I can be in a state, it's not like this, oh, wow, I'm above the world and all that stuff. Like, it's really a grounded, present place where you feel like you are sensing the essence of love that's within every living being. You can really feel the essence of trees and the essence of people. And I know that sounds, for people who haven't experienced that, it's like, really? That doesn't seem so practical. I really want to make $1 million. But when you get into that place, it's indicative that you're touching your place of highest wisdom. And when you do that, the steps that you need to take in your life to heal your body or to grow your business, you will find a place of inspiration inside of you to be able to take those actions from. So it's about cultivating that inner place inside. And a way to bridge that is to give the mind something to do. And you can tell that it's working. Like, say, for example, that you came home from wherever you were, you've had a really frantic day, you got to pick up the kids, you got to feed the dog, you got all this stuff going on, and you sit down to meditate, and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to do my counting. Okay, 893, and then what's that minus 7? 800, and you kind of do your counting for 3 minutes, and you lose it a little bit, you come back to it a little bit, it's kind of messy. But if at the end of those 3 minutes or 10 minutes or however you choose to sit, you're able to say, okay, wait a minute. When I sat down, I had something to do. What was I so worried about? And you're like, oh yeah, I got to get the kid and I got to feed the dog. If it takes you a second to remember what it was you were so stressed out about, you've actually changed a neural pathway in your brain. You have gotten off of the subconscious tape that's playing and playing, 60 and 80,000 thoughts every single day. And you've jumped into a different place. And that's what, when I interviewed a neuroscientist, Dr. Bruce Lipton, when I was, writing my book, that's what he was explaining, is that these little breaks are constantly and consistently interrupting your subconscious programming. So you can kind of get yourself and your brain on a different wavelength. Like, literally your brain waves will measurably change. The neural pathways in your brain start rewiring. And that's the foundation of success in my experience.
Awesome, and I mean, there's a lot of good stuff to unpack there, and I really like, and I think that, like, I think I've experienced that like pretty regularly, but usually on accident. Usually, like when I had a
Mm-hmm.
really big decision that was weighing on me, or I had to solve some problem and that involved, connecting two different things and stuff like that. It's like I've had that sort of that break or that reset or that calmness or that the slowdown or whatever. I've had that on occasion, but so it sounds like this technique is a way to just get back to that on command. But it also sounds like it might take a few weeks of doing this 3 times a day for 3 minutes, or as long as we can manage, in order to kind of get that skill built up. Is that right?
Yeah, it's kind of like a muscle. The first few times you go to the gym, you don't know how to use the weights, you're doing it wrong, like it's messy. And the first week, you're probably like, oh, why am I even bothering? Like, this is never going to get anywhere. But when you stick with it, week 2, you have a little more mastery. Week 3, you have a little more mastery. And I've heard it said that it takes 21 to 28 days to change a habit. And by the time you've done this for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, it really if you're playing full out with it, if you're kind of like half texting and half meditating, it's not going to work. You've got to be in full openness, focus mode when you're doing this. But if you do that constantly and consistently, and you really intend to reach that space of peace and inner wisdom inside, it can't not happen, because I believe it's our most natural state. I really do. And it's not terribly hard to access, but it's a bit, it's kind of like our brains, our minds are going 80 miles an hour. And to get that to kind of slow down, stop, and go in the other direction is a little bit of a process. So I think of it as a muscle. And I don't encourage people to kind of say, okay, I'm going to start today and I'm going to meditate for the rest of my life every single day. Like, just take it 7 days at a time, because you can commit to pretty much anything. I'm going to join the gym for 7 days. I'm going to follow this eating plan for 7 days. I'm going to, write a gratitude journal for 7 days. Like, 7 days is a manageable amount of time. that you can say, I'm going to try this practice or whatever meditation practice or yoga or whatever it is. And I'm going to commit to playing full out every single day just for these 7 days. And then if it gets to day 3 or 4 and you're kind of over it and you're sick of it and you're thinking, I'm going to quit, just remind yourself, I only have a couple more days. I can do this. I can do my 7 days. And at the end of 7 days, ask yourself, do I want to renew this? Do I want to try this again? And that's how I feel is a really good foundation rather than this kind of New Year's resolution. Oh my gosh, I'm never going to curse again. I'm never going to eat bread again. And, it's just unrealistic to commit to something so big. But if you say, I want to try this practice just for 7 days and then renew it from there, can be a really, really powerful way to sneak that into your everyday habit in your life.
I think that's really good advice, like having that sort of trial period, so you're only looking a few days in the future, not like you said, not your entire life, not the whole year, not the whole month, because that just seems like a really easy recipe for getting yourself bogged down before you start. And I think that yeah, like my tendency, at least me personally, is to sort of just like have the runaway train of thought and just keep thinking and obsessing over any kind of problem. And I noticed that, well, I can't really fight it because that's sort of fighting who I am, and I wouldn't want to get rid of that because that's a helpful tool in solving these problems sometimes. But a lot of the times, it's like just this fire hose that I can't control, and there's just like this like blinding anxiety sort of that sometimes it's just too much, and I need to have some sort of exercise to just to settle things down a little bit. And so, you mentioned as we started talking about this that you came across this because you had fallen into a pretty dark place of planning your suicide date and alcohol withdrawal. And so, could you kind of tell everyone like what happened there and what sort of led you to that point?
Yeah, sure. I when I hit my rock bottom point, I was 32, and I had spent at least 10 years previous to that. I was diagnosed in my early 20s with major depressive disorder, which is basically clinical depression. And if I were to look back before that, I'm sure that I would have been diagnosed with that earlier. I had just never kind of gotten checked for it or whatever you want to, had never been diagnosed prior to that. But I just felt my whole life like I had this emotional black hole inside of myself. I was a perfectionist, and even when things were perfect, it wasn't good enough. It was like I was always searching, always seeking, always hungry for something else. And I was changing jobs, I was upgrading my boyfriends, buying new cars, like traveling to different places across the world, thinking something is going to fix this. If I just get married, if I just get the perfect job, if I just help enough people, like I was looking for something outside of myself to fulfill myself. And in my later 20s, that something became alcohol. And when alcohol kind of came into my life, it really took over kind of quickly. And I think it's because, spending my 20s trying to use medications and therapies, group therapies. I actually left work part-time to go to depression therapy and stuff like, and everybody that I was working with was really well-meaning. And I know that the medications work for a lot of people, but it just wasn't hitting the mark for me. It just was not hitting where I needed it to hit in order to feel that sense of well-being that most people just kind of walk around with normal. And when I began drinking, and kind of using it as a self-soothing behavior, within a few weeks it became a nightly thing for me. And then within just a few months, like I was around the clock. I couldn't get out of bed without having a drink. I had to like when I would go to work, I would have to leave and go home for lunch and have a drink to go back to work. It wasn't just one drink, like I was having a couple double shots of vodka every morning before I went to work. So it was like there was constant alcohol in my bloodstream for 2 or 3 years. And, this was just absolute, of course, it was not helping with any of the emotional things I was going through. It was just sort of numbing it. And when I was an alcoholic, I became a person I couldn't even recognize. Like I was waking up next to all these people I couldn't remember their name, these guys, and I was stealing money and I was lying to all of my friends. Like I was becoming morally, just degraded as a person. And that's not who I was, but I couldn't control it. I felt it was completely out of my control. And I had just done one too many things, throughout those years to hurt people and to really just destroy my moral character. And that's what ended up me taking, planning a date to take my own life. Like it was just one thing after another. And instead of, for years, for at least 10 years, every night I would go to bed and say, if I don't wake up in the morning, that's okay with me. I just kind of had this, if it's my time, I'm cool with that. Like, I don't see anything ever working in this life. But it was the moral, can't look my own eyes in the mirror type of thing that really led me to plan a date for my own suicide. And anyway, to kind of make a long story short, I ended up in an addiction recovery program sort of by accident, not like I thought I had a problem. And I couldn't believe I could identify with what a lot of those people were saying. And I went to meetings every day for 3 months and of this addiction recovery, and I didn't commit to doing a single thing. And I was still drinking, and basically I was just kind of warding off my suicide one day at a time. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I couldn't see my life without alcohol, but I couldn't see it continuing with it. And so when I met that woman that inspired me, I just said, listen, I think I just need your help. Like, I'm tired of trying to do this by myself. I don't know how to do this. And that was her first instruction to me, was to learn to meditate. I remember looking at her like, really? That's your big answer? I'm going to meditate and something's going to happen. But that was the absolute key to my transformation from being suicidal and alcoholic. And it led me to places inside of myself of inner joy and peace and bliss that if I had known was possible to access that and to feel that way while I was still here on this planet, I never would have wanted to take my own life. It was so profoundly amazing to me that something inside of me unlocked like that. And I really believe it's our most natural state. And so, and it's the precursor to all of these things happening, because I had a day job at the time. Like, if you would have told me 6, 7 years ago, hey, Dina, do you want to kind of quit your job and be an entrepreneur and speak in front of groups on stages and write a book and share your story with the world and help people, I would have said, no, thank you. Like, I wouldn't have even wanted the life that I have today that is so fulfilling. It's not like this was a dream that I was trying. It was not even something that I even wanted, because I had so much shame about my story and about my struggle and about being a drunk and a thief and a liar. Like, I didn't want that. But because I accessed that place of higher guidance and peace, just these little breadcrumbs, I took a writing class. Then I met Jack Canfield at a retreat. He told me my writing should be a book. Then I had a coach. It was kind of like one thing led to another. And it ended up being, I couldn't have designed a more fulfilling career for myself than what this ended up to be. And so that's what I say that's what I mean when I say that anything we want to I have chills right now. Like, anything we want to manifest in our exterior world starts on the inside first. And we largely don't even really have to know what we want, because our higher guidance already knows what's going to be fulfilling to us. Because I would have balked at the, yeah, oh yeah, no thanks, I don't want, no thanks, I don't want that. But here I am, and I love it, and I can't imagine my life being any other way. So that inner peace and that place of accessing inner wisdom is the place from which I believe all transformation is born.
Awesome. And I mean, there's a lot in there, and man, that's a pretty scary story, and a scary place you found yourself into. And I mean, I can't even imagine. But what I heard a lot from you was, it almost sounded like you were like trapped between two things. You're kind of like wedged in there. And I mean, in your case, it was alcohol. But it's one thing that you said that kind of stuck with me is, you said that something like, well, your life couldn't continue with alcohol, but it also couldn't continue without alcohol. And I think that maybe a lot of people who were listening, maybe they found themselves in a similar situation, maybe not with
Mm.
alcohol exactly, but maybe they just kind of made one compromise after another and were kind of pushed into maybe a no-win situation. And so it sounds like the really helpful tool for you was, instead of just trying to go to extremes, you just like calmed it down, took a step back, did this meditation thing, and like you said, tapped into this higher power. So that way, like the decision, it sort of was on you, but it was like you weren't having all this pressure to sort of think your way out of the situation that you had thought your way into. And so yeah, so what, I mean, what exactly changed? Like, what, so you said that you went to your meetings, and you had the higher power, but I mean what sort of like daily change did you make? Was it a matter of like this 3 by 3 meditation, or like
Mm.
what's different about your life now compared to then, besides everything, right?
It's such a good question. Yeah, it's true. So here's how it looked for me at that time. She told me, sit still every morning, focus on your breath for 20 minutes, which I totally rolled my eyes at. But that was her only instruction to me because, frankly, in her opinion, I wasn't ready to do the steps of the addiction recovery program because I was just too nutso. I was just too out there. So she said, sit still every morning, focus on your breathing, put on a timer for 20 minutes. But those first few mornings is when I was withdrawing because I finally said I'm going to quit drinking and my body was going through detox and withdrawal. Like my skin was itchy, it was crawling and I would shake and sweat and basically I was just in the fetal position. And that, for like the first week, 2 weeks, like it sucked. Like it was really hard. But after that, weeks 3, 4, 5, and, for a lot of people, it won't take them this long because they're not in nearly the state that I was in. But when I started to notice, like, I didn't mind the meditation time, but I didn't love it either because I was still only doing the 3 minutes because that's, when I was shaking and sweating those first few days, I couldn't sit still for longer than 3 minutes. It was just impossible. It was intolerable. But it would kind of bother me. Like, she only told me to do 20 minutes. Like, what's wrong with me? And I would go later in the day and set my timer for 17 minutes and say, I'm going to make it 20. And I would max out consistently at the 3 minute mark. And so when I told my coach that, she said, whatever you can do is great, just be consistent. And so that's what ended up being, after those first few days, it was kind of like, well, I'm in this 3 minute thing. And I was doing it 6, 7 times a day to make the 20-minute quota. And that's what I did for those first few weeks. And at about the 8-week mark, I remember I was in my apartment. I was living in Santa Monica at the time. And I opened my eyes out of one of my meditations and the voice in my head was totally gone. And I had never experienced that before. I didn't even know it was possible to not have mind chatter because we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts every single day. And I had zero. And when I was in that state, it was almost like, Robert, you made a good point earlier because you said, sometimes after you've gone through a crisis or something, you kind of notice that you have a little bit of quietness in the mind when those things are happening, but it's a little bit fleeting and elusive and unpredictable. Well, that state, it almost felt like I was in this slow motion kind of, when you're falling or your car, you don't want to hit something and just time just slows down and your mind really stops when that happens. And I really believe it's because we're in a state of uber focus and that can be sort of a normal place that we're able to touch into. And so that's what happened to me. After 8 weeks of this 3-minute here, 3-minute there thing, I came out of one of the meditations and that was my experience. And that state lasted for me for 3 whole days. And I only came back out of it because my mind just started going, I wonder how long this is going to last. I wonder how long we're not going to have any thoughts, and like, zoom, I was kind of like back in my old state. But it was like, well, not old state because you can't have an experience like that and not be transformed. It was kind of like a white light experience for me. And those 3 days, there were 2 things that were really obvious to me when I was in that, I call it a state of higher consciousness for those 3 days. I had no mind chatter. And every single person and every activity I was doing took up the entirety of my focus. So when I was getting dressed, it's like, we're wearing clothes all the time. We don't even feel the clothes against our skin. And I was just feeling like the detail of the fabric against my skin. And like, I've never noticed that before. It's just so incredibly present. Brushing my teeth. It was like insanely pleasurable. It was like a massage. It was just amazing brushing my teeth. And like the love that I felt from my cat and seeing the inner essence of love in every single person, animal, tree, flower. It was like, I just thought, trees and flowers were kind of like, they're there, but the life essence inside of them is amazing. And I was also really clear that there was no such thing as time. That was very obvious to me in those 3 days as well. And so that was kind of the foundation from which I thought, okay, I understand why she taught me to meditate because this is not something I'd ever expected. And I didn't even believe in God at that time. It wasn't even like, oh, God, please save me or please help me. Like my meditation was just, I'm open, I'm willing, just show me. I didn't even know who I was talking to because I didn't even believe in God or anything greater than, I didn't know any of this. I didn't know law of attraction. I didn't know vibration. I didn't know anything about anything. And this state happened to me. And coming out of that, it was so obvious to me that the reason that my life had never worked out was because I kept changing my situations and changing my outer circumstances, jobs, boyfriends, living situations, but I was taking myself with me. So how could I not recreate the same thing over and over and over again? I would date one guy living in one city, break up with him, move to another city, date another guy. And I'm like, how are you the same guy in another body? It's just kind of because I was taking myself with me, and that's what I was drawing from my external reality. That's what I was a magnet to. That's what I drew to myself. And so when this kind of inner transformation happened, like that 3-day experience, I became different. Like literally it felt like the cells of my body rewired. And I knew that these 3-minute meditations kind of would be the key. And when I quit drinking, I started eating, and I ended up going up a couple of sizes. And I knew that if I just focused in my meditation time and rewired my relationship with food, I developed a whole intuitive eating practice. And I mean, all of these things are really simple. It's not dramatic, but it has dramatic impact on your life change, on your life experience. So my body transformed. I released most of that weight within 10 days, which is just amazing, which is really great. I've used the visualization to lower my cholesterol. I used the inner wisdom I was accessing to write the book and to attract coaching clients and to attract speaking engagements and be able to share this story and this method with different people all around the world. So that's really where it came from. And now it kind of boils down to 3 minutes, 3 times a day. And I feel like that not mentally makes sense. It just feels right. And that's my practice now is 3 minutes, 3 times a day, because I feel like we nourish our bodies 3 times a day. Let's nourish our souls 3 times a day.
Yeah, I mean that makes a lot of sense, and that's awesome. And there's a that's hitting home for a lot of points for me. And one thing that comes to mind a lot is I think that to one degree or another, I think that a lot of us entrepreneurs have that addictive personality, and for some of us it's really major, and some of us not so much. But I think that as you were kind of explaining that, it's like, well, if you don't take care of what's on the inside, then it doesn't matter what you accomplish. It's kind of a hollow victory. And if you're not addicted to alcohol, someone might, if they're not careful, might find themselves addicted to drugs or eating or sex or whatever. And
Mhm.
it'd be better to be addicted to those things that improve our lives and improve other people's lives. And I think that this is a really important message. And so this 3 by 3 meditation thing, is this what you cover in your Madly Chasing Peace book?
Yeah, the book is basically it's my story in detail, and the lessons are implied because you kind of like watch my struggle, and you know that it has a happy ending, but I unfold for people how it unfolded for me. And then so the first like 3 quarters of the book are my story with the implied lessons, and then the last quarter of the book I put in these little games that people can take with them, how exactly to start a meditation practice, what to do, how to use meditation for relationship, meditation around, different kind of life areas and stuff. So some practical tips at the end of the book.
Cool. So not just the boring facts and figures, you actually take people on a journey, and then even when it comes time for the teaching component, it's still fun. It's still playing games, not just learning some facts and figures.
Yeah, I really feel that it's totally accessible. And like I feel like I shared it from a place of, I can't even tell you how amazing it felt as I was writing it. Like I just knew that this story was, being written for a reason. And, so it's, yeah, I mean for it to be in the world, to be drawn to the people that are drawn to it, and to uplift and inspire whoever might be drawn to it.
Awesome. I mean, it sounds amazing. It sounds like something that everyone needs to go and pick up. So where can people get Madly Chasing Peace? And do you have any websites or any other places people should check out?
Sure. Everything is just on I only have one website, so it's madlychasingpeace.com. And then on there you can click, there's a link for the book, and then it has like all the Amazon, and I have an Audible, kind of there's a Kindle version, there's a paperback version, there's a audio version. So it's all right there. And then I also do like a lot of free videos because I love when insights come to me, I like to share them. And so there's a ton of free resources on their videos and stuff. And I have audio meditations too. So
Awesome. So all the tools, yeah, and I see there's the videos, and there's a place to get for someone to get coaching if they want it. There's a podcast, so everything is there at madlychasingpeace.com.
Hmm.
So thanks so much, Dina, for coming on and sharing your sort of scary story. But the good news, like you said, is it has a happy ending, and it helped you and it's helped others. And I think that anyone who's listening, if you ever kind of hit a wall or felt stuck or frustrated or just like didn't have or thought that didn't have the easiest time and thought that there should be and can be a better way, they should check out this 3x3 meditation thing and go to madlychasingpeace.com, go to the website and grab the book. So thanks so much, Gina, for coming on and sharing your story and sharing your advice.
Totally my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Robert.
Go right now to robertplank.com/iTunes to subscribe to the show, listen to other episodes, and rate and review the show.